The morning of August 8th, 2024, in the heart of the Amazon jungle, was dense with mist and the heavy, humid air that defines this remote part of Peru. A police truck forced its way down a rutted, muddy road toward a wooden compound on the outskirts of the small town of Yurimaguas. Locals called it Centro dos Mundos, the Center of Worlds, a name that promised connection, enlightenment, and transformation. The road twisted through the rainforest, branches scraping the sides of the vehicle, the cacophony of birds and insects interrupted only by the crunch of mud under tires. Then, a shout echoed from a small cabin set apart from the main complex. Seconds later, officers rammed the door open with the butt of a rifle, revealing a scene so chaotic it seemed like time itself had stopped within those four walls. The interior was dim, illuminated only by fractured rays of sunlight slipping through cracks in the wooden planks. The floor was a landscape of overturned bowls, shattered glass, and the dark remnants of a smoldering fire in the center of the room. The smell hit the officers first, coppery, thick, and unmistakably the scent of blood mixed with smoke. A man, almost naked and covered from head to toe in red stains, knelt on the floor. His gaze was vacant, unseeing, lips moving silently, as if speaking to entities only he could perceive. On the ground nearby lay the body of a woman. Her form was marred with multiple injuries, evidence of a struggle painted across every surface of the cabin. The walls, floor, and furniture were smeared with blood, creating a macabre tableau that would haunt the officers for years to come. "What happened here?" one investigator asked, scanning the room with careful clinical attention. The lead officer's reply was simple, yet chilling. "This isn't just a crime. There was a ritual." Outside, staff and local residents had gathered, their whispers carrying stories of two foreign visitors who had lived at the center for the past several weeks. The police immediately photographed the scene, sealed off the cabin, and began piecing together a tragedy that would shock not only Peru but the world. The jungle's stillness, so often a symbol of life and growth, contrasted starkly with the violence inside. Investigators soon confirmed the identities of the two individuals. The man was Ivan Kuzmin, a Ukrainian citizen. The woman was Liudma Lazarenko, from Russia. Both had traveled to Peru, seeking spiritual healing, drawn to Centro dos Mundos by promises of inner transformation and mystical enlightenment. But what should have been a journey toward peace had turned into a nightmare of unimaginable horror. How did two individuals, so intent on finding light, end up dead or destroyed in a remote hut in the Amazon? Before delving further, it's important to understand the place itself. Centro dos Mundos was a wooden complex, roughly 40 minutes from Yurimaguas, deep within the Laredo region jungle. From the outside, it appeared serene, cabins scattered around a communal dining area, a ceremonial space, and a central fire circle where visitors would gather to partake in rituals. Officially, the center promoted itself as a sanctuary for spiritual awakening, offering participants the chance to connect with the spirit world through traditional Amazonian practices. Ayahuasca ceremonies, central to its claim of healing, were touted as keys to liberation from trauma, fear, and illness. Guests were promised the return of energy, clarity, and even relief from dependencies. Lodging, daily sessions, and full immersion in the jungle formed the basis of the experience. At the heart of Centro dos Mundos was its founder, Pep Ordonez, a local man who had grown up in the village of Teniente Cesar Lopez in Alto Amazonas. From an early age, Ordonez claimed abilities that set him apart. As a child, he said he could heal animals and even family members with a touch. By the age of 12, he participated in ayahuasca rituals, eventually declaring himself a shaman. Adding to his mystique, Ordonez trained in acting and directing, honing skills that would later allow him to present spiritual ceremonies with dramatic flair. Vivid gestures, purposeful pauses, and orchestrated energy made the sessions captivating, blurring the lines between theatrical performance and sacred ritual. Promotional material for the center reinforced this narrative, promising spiritual liberation, personal growth, and reconnection with the natural world. Travelers came from across the globe: Europe, Russia, the United States. For many, Centro dos Mundos offered an exotic, almost cinematic escape, a chance to reset in the untouched heart of the Amazon. But beneath the veneer of peace and spiritual guidance, The center functioned as a dangerous experiment with no medical supervision, no licensing, and virtually no accountability. Substances like ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, and the San Pedro cactus were provided freely, often without any oversight of dosage or participant safety. Red flags had appeared long before August 2024. Former participants later described Ordonez's inappropriate behavior during rituals, instances of unwanted physical contact, and emotional manipulation disguised as spiritual teaching. Local media reported aggressive behavior, yet the center continued to operate largely unchallenged. Staff later admitted that participants frequently remained under the influence of hallucinogens for weeks, with no medical intervention even after prior incidents. The tragedy that would unfold centered on Liudma Lazarenko, 44, a woman from Russia. To those who knew her, she was gentle, deeply empathetic, and spiritually dedicated. Born in Russia, she had married young and moved with her family to Thailand, where she founded her own meditation and healing center. She blended Eastern philosophy with shamanic traditions and maintained an active online presence, sharing teachings of gratitude, mindfulness, and inner light. Friends described her as someone whose life radiated balance between family, work, and spirituality. Her greatest pride was her 2 daughters. Liudma's spiritual path had increasingly drawn her to South America. She first visited Peru in 2022, where she encountered Pep Ordonez and the Ayahuasca rituals that would later mark the location of her death. She described the rainforest as a place where one could hear themselves, free from the noise of civilization. Over the next 2 years, she returned to Peru multiple times, extending her stays, always seeking deeper understanding, spiritual growth, and personal peace. Her family, though worried, supported her travels, recognizing her dedication. Ivan Kuzmin, meanwhile, had his own path. Born in Ukraine, he trained extensively in martial arts before moving to Russia, where he taught capoeira. Charismatic but prone to extremes, Ivan gradually shifted toward spiritual exploration, studying meditation, energy techniques, and hallucinogenic practices. In 2022, he traveled to Peru for the first time, participating at Centro dos Mundos in a spiritual retreat program. Initially, he followed the rules, but soon his use of psychoactive substances escalated. His requests for higher doses of ayahuasca became persistent, and his perception of reality began to slip. By 2024, Ivan had returned to Centro dos Mundos, now seeing himself as an advanced practitioner with a mission to cleanse others spiritually. Observers reported that he consumed large amounts of hallucinogens, sometimes mixing ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, and San Pedro cactus, a combination that could cause severe psychosis. Ivan believed he shared a karmic bond with Liudma, claiming a duty to protect her from dark forces. To most, these statements appeared as mystical ramblings. To Ivan, they were the absolute truth. On August 7, 2024, Liudma and Ivan entered a small, secluded hut away from the main center. The two decided to perform a private ceremony that evening, combining ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, and San Pedro cactus. Witnesses later reported that everything seemed calm at first. Liudma, experienced in leading such rituals, played music, chanted mantras, and guided the session. But as the ceremony progressed, Ivan began exhibiting erratic behavior. His breathing became shallow and irregular, his hands trembled, and he began speaking of unseen presences. According to investigators, Ivan entered a severe psychotic episode. He claimed to see Liudma's face change, her eyes turning black, a dark spirit entering her body. In his altered state, hallucinations merged with delusions, and he believed he had to act violently to save her soul. He grabbed a nearby object and struck her. Witnesses outside reported hearing screams, frantic calls for help, and desperate attempts to enter the locked hut. Staff finally reached the scene, but by the time they arrived, the chaos had subsided, leaving Ivan, covered in blood, holding a knife, muttering about demons. Police arrived shortly afterward, finding Ivan partially clothed, highly agitated, and disoriented. He offered minimal resistance and was quickly restrained, though not without incident. Medical experts later determined that Ivan's actions were triggered by a combination of acute psychosis, heavy hallucinogen use, and psychological instability. Inside the hut, investigators found remnants of the substances, overturned furniture, and signs of extreme struggle. The aftermath sparked outrage across Peru and beyond. Local authorities charged Ivan with deliberate acts of extreme aggression resulting in death. During preliminary hearings, he admitted responsibility but insisted he was expelling a dark spirit from Liudma. Psychiatric assessments confirmed that he had experienced a full psychotic break during the incident. Authorities maintained him in pretrial detention while investigations continued. Public scrutiny also fell on Pep Ordonez and Centro dos Mundos. While Ordonez denied responsibility, claiming participants consumed substances independently, journalists uncovered testimonies of former participants alleging misconduct, negligence, and the unregulated provision of dangerous hallucinogens. Local residents and advocacy groups demanded the center be closed, citing the tragic death as proof of systemic failure. Liudma's body was cremated in Tarapoto on August 14, 2024, with a small, solemn ceremony attended by close friends and officials. Her ashes were later transported to Moscow. Her family demanded justice, devastated by the loss of a woman who had dedicated her life to healing others. The story spread internationally, drawing attention to the risks of unregulated spiritual centers and the dangerous use of hallucinogens like ayahuasca in contexts lacking medical oversight. Experts emphasize that, under professional supervision with proper dosage control, tragedies like this could often be prevented. However, unregulated centers with charismatic leaders and vulnerable participants create a perfect storm for disaster. What begins as a spiritual journey can swiftly spiral into a situation of uncontrolled psychosis, hallucination, and violence, particularly for those with pre-existing psychological vulnerabilities. This case, while tragic, has sparked global conversations about safety in spiritual retreats, the responsibilities of leaders, and the unforeseen consequences of hallucinogen use. It remains a cautionary tale. The Amazon may promise transformation, but without guidance, boundaries, and oversight, the pursuit of enlightenment can have devastating, irreversible consequences.